Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
And thanks for rolling with us and our guest, Mark from Anaheim. He's our go-to guy, our go-to person whenever situations like this happen. We're speaking about Orlando. Before we left for the traffic and weather update, you were telling us that Rush Limbaugh, the mouthpiece for the conservatives, he took off today, the biggest story of the year, and he's not on the radio?
Yeah, well, he was already planning to have this day off, but he had this guy named Mark Stein that often fills in for him. Now, Mark Stein is one of these rabid white-wing, this guy is to the right of Ted Cruz, okay? But it's kind of interesting because Rush Limbaugh is supporting Donald Trump, so of course Stein goes along with Trump since he's on Limbaugh's show. Well, Mark Stein was educated in Great Britain, and he went on and on with his rabid anti-Muslim bashing, with his rabid anti-gay lesbian bashing, but he never mentioned once G4S. Now, Stein was educated in Great Britain. G4S is headquartered in Great Britain. Now, it wasn't originally a company out of Great Britain. These guys go way back in time. We're talking late 1800s, early 1900s. And as we have a saying, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. But basically, that company has some very interesting ties to the Dutch, the Danish, and the Nazis. In fact, when I think of G4S, I think of that movie, The Girl Who Wore the Tattooed Dragon, because they were doing some investigation on this one major German corporation, and when they started digging deep into what was going on during World War II, they were running into obstacles. I'll just say this to you, Mr. Nelson. I challenge some of your listeners out there to do it because I haven't been able to do it. Find me any information about G4S during the period of World War II. It's like all records have just vanished and disappeared. These guys are the big boys on the block, okay? People talk about Wackenhut. They consumed Wackenhut. As I'm speaking to you right now, I'm sure there's some of the people in your listening audience who probably work for G4S and don't even know who they're working for. These guys have more than 600,000 employees. Now, they're headquartered in Great Britain, and they have more than 3 times the number of members of the armed forces in Great Britain. And they're all over the planet. Last time I counted, they have contracts in like 127 countries, including this one, by the way. And since we're doing this show out of Washington, D.C., they even have contracts in the Pentagon. Okay? And nobody talks about G4S or who this guy was employed by. So I found it a little interesting that somebody with a prior domestic violence record and a guy who had made statements at work that were supposed to be so inflammatory, supporting Islamic Jihad, and was not under one but 2 separate federal investigations, still has the capability of maintaining to have a license to be a security guard and to possess firearms. But hey, he works for G4S, okay? So you folks do a little research and homework on that one, G4S, because when it comes to G4S, and why I say I find it highly suspect that this guy is a legitimate far Islamic Jihad supporter, Mr. Nelson. G4S, for those who out there don't know, are the ones who man the prisons over in Israel that have been alleged to have done some of the most inhumane human rights abuse against Palestinian, especially Palestinian political prisoners. I find it highly suspect that some guy working for a corporation who has been known to conduct human rights violations against folks like the Palestinians and other Muslims around the continent of Africa, but all of a sudden he's going to be an employee for them? Something smells here big time. As we say, food for thought, grounds for further research.
Wow. Didn't know that one. 800-450-7876, discussing Orlando. You got questions? Let's go to line 2. CP's calling us from South Central Los Angeles. CP, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. What's going on, Mark? You don't have to tell me because you already have. Really, Mark, I was going to ask you what you was just saying, right? Here I am. If I blow my nose too hard in South Central, they wouldn't let me get a gun. And this person been on an investigation. His wife told me he was domestic violence and all that, and I'm wondering how did he get that gun and do all that, and I'm wondering, I was thinking about that COINTELPRO, how people twist things around and make it seem like one thing, and then I started thinking about all kind of stuff, the movie I saw, the W, and all of that, you know what I mean? So you really kind of answered my question before I was going to get your take on that, about how did you really feel and where did this person come from, and who is he really working for? What team is he on? But I think you answered my question. You always do, man, and all I have to do is listen. And I want to get to it before you brought it like that, but I think you brought it better by me not asking than asking. So I really appreciate you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And, Mr. Nelson, what was really freaky about this whole thing, last year I was at a surf in fact, I'm supposed to be at a surf contest right now. I canceled my appearance there to be on the show because it's far more important. And I know there were some families and some surfers I promised to be there to support today, but, with everything that would happen in Orlando. Well, last year, when the shootings were going on in Charleston, I was with surfers from South Carolina. This year, when the shootings were going on in Orlando, I was with surfers from Florida. And it was really weird because I had a family, I won't say who, but there was a family at that surf contest who specifically came up to me during the surf contest, and guess what they started asking me questions about?
What?
Mass murders in the U.S., and what did I see coming down the pike? I mean, less than 36 hours before the shooting started in Orlando, I had a surf family on the beach during the middle of a major surf contest. We weren't discussing surfing. We were discussing when did I think was going to be the next mass murder in this country. And also, it's kind of interesting because I told them about how police respond to something like that, and I'm not going to go into detail because there's an ongoing investigation. However, what I will say to your listeners, from what I've heard so far, exactly what I said to that family on the beach, how the cops would respond, it appears that's what happened in this situation. So what I will say to you this much, I think there are going to be some major questions later on about how the police responded to this. And it's sad because the cops are always second-judged. But in this particular case, if this investigation is thorough and forthright, I think you're going to see some major questions come out about how Orlando's law enforcement personnel responded to this incident.
And I think one of the main questions, what took them so long to go in?
Well, I don't have a problem with that. And see, that's one of the things I brought up during that whole discussion with that family. Now, I taught police tactics, including responding to an active shooter. And I always had a problem with the Columbine thing because with Columbine, I should say this to you today, Mr. Nelson, to the day, I just received a message from Facebook before I came on your show reminding me that a year ago today, I posted my Facebook status as saying, less than 2 weeks, this is the third Columbine-type shooting that was planned that was thwarted by the law enforcement agents. And most people will never hear about it because it's not covered in the media. So these types of things are going on all the time, and unfortunately law enforcement does not get credit when they stop it before it happens. But I say that to you because when you look at the Columbine situation, up until Columbine, police officers, if you're working alone and you get to the scene where there's shooting going on inside, you're not going to go in without backup. Now, this officer was, he did as he was taught, and then later on his police department gets second-guessed because they're saying he stood outside and did nothing while people were still getting shot inside. Well, that's how he was taught. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not just what I told his family. 2016, I'm not going to go in that building by myself knowing the shit, because you don't know who the shooters are, how many shooters there are. And then I reminded him of an incident that happened right here in Orange County, not far from where I live, Stanton, California. There was an officer who went in on a burglary call, burglary suspect there now. He doesn't wait for backup. He goes inside the house. He searches the house. He sees the silhouette of a suspect holding a pistol pointing towards the doorway that he was getting ready to go in. And so what does he do? He tries to jump the, I don't want to say use the term jump the gun. What a bad pun here. But he tried to get the drop on the suspect, jumps into the doorway, fires, hits the suspect perfectly. Suspect goes down. Suspect is dead. Only one problem. The suspect was a minor holding a toy pistol. Now, the shooting came back in policy as far as department policy goes because based on what he saw at the time, he thought he was being waited for, laying in ambush by a suspect holding a gun. But because of the tactics he deployed by not waiting for a backup, he was second-judged, the police department was sued, and today Stanton Police Department no longer exists. They are patrolled by the Orange County Sheriffs. So here you have a situation where a guy didn't wait for backup, and they're second-guessed. You have a guy who waited for backup in Columbine, they're second-guessed. And there's a lot that was taught since Columbine as far as how to respond to an active shooter situation. I myself know for a fact that, one of my last incidents when I was working for LAPD was a major shooting incident. And I had officers who were going to try to run in. And I stopped those officers from running in. And it's kind of weird because I left LAPD for that cable, but it was rare because one of the few things that was even said positively about any supervisor at that scene, even though they didn't say it by name for me in the newspapers, was the fact that during the investigation, the supervisor who stopped them from running in was one of the few people who did the way they were supposed to do. So I'm just telling you, it's a no-win situation, and I've been involved with a lot of shooting incidents, and I've investigated police officers killed. God knows, I've seen more death than I want to see, and I stopped going to funerals because I've been to so many damn funerals of people who I personally know. So in this situation, I'm not going to second-guess those officers on why they waited so long. What I'm going to tell you is they're going to get hammered later on if this investigation is forthright, because what I would say, I'll just say the investigation is ongoing, and I would not be surprised if, unfortunately, some of the victims of the shooting, the rounds did not come from the suspect. I'll just leave it at that.
Gotcha. 800-450-7876. That explains maybe why 100 people got shot.
No, but go ahead.
you won't give us that one, right?
No.
You still think that one guy could get off that many rounds?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, unfortunately, there was a tactical situation where at one point it appeared they may have been able to resolve this. Things didn't go the way they wanted, and then this guy retreated back inside and took more hostages and went into a restroom. It was at that point that they ended up knocking a hole in the wall, trying to get some of the additional people out. And then when they knocked the holes in the wall with their vehicle, the suspect also tried to exit the location armed, and then they engaged him in another gunfight.
All right, hold that thought right there, because we got to take a quick break, and Mayhem wants to speak to you. Folks, you too can join the discussion with Mark from Anaheim, just talking about Orlando. What are your thoughts? Do you think it went down like they're telling us it did? Reach out to us, 800-450-7876. Your calls are next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Nelson Show.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Mark from Anaheim. He's our go-to guy when situations like this happen. And what I'm referring to, of course, is what happened in Orlando. Got a tweet from New Orleans, and you basically answered the question, but they want to know what are the chances the cops could have caused some of the casualties. Do you think if that is the case, will we ever know?
Well, I'll just say that I was involved in an incident once where there were some individuals who were shot by law enforcement. And it's kind of interesting that to this day, they claim they have no idea whose bullet struck one of the victims. Now, I spent 24 and a half years with LAPD, okay? I've never known of anybody being able to have an investigation where they couldn't determine whose bullet struck somebody. And I've talked to officers who had far more time on before I came on the job, during the time I came on the job, since I left the job, and nobody's ever told me that they didn't know whose bullet hit a victim. But that was the official report in a situation that I was involved in, without going into any specific details here. And like I said before, if this investigation is thorough and forthright, and I'm not passing any judgment on anybody here, I'm just saying, unfortunately, the officers are going to probably be put on they didn't waste any time relieving of duty 11 guys. And I don't think that helps the department either, because it almost makes people think already they did something wrong. And I'm not by any means saying that. What I'm just saying to you is you have a large crowd of individuals. You're involved in a shooting situation with an armed suspect who's shooting at you and your fellow officers. There wasn't one officer whose Kevlar helmet was struck by a bullet. Of course, we don't know yet whether that was an officer's bullet either. But I'm just telling you, there's a very good likelihood that some of those patrons inside, unfortunately, may have been struck by bullets that were not fired by the suspect.
All right, before I go to Mayhem, let me go back to Mayhem, by the way. Let me go back to the question, the gun, because you know what he looks like and how big it is.
Yes, sir.
Could he have gotten into because when you go to clubs and you get checked out, how could he get through with that gun and all that ammo?
This was for those who may not be familiar with this particular bar, this bar was known for a lot of political activity in the LGBT community. And there's just so much about this guy you don't hear. Now, I was up here in Santa Barbara just very, very shortly. I'm talking a matter of maybe 2-3 hours after the shooting stopped at Isla Vista. And I took hundreds of photographs, and I spoke to lots of people up at Isla Vista. And when Elliot Rodgers did the shooting up there near Cal State University, Santa Barbara, you know, the feminist groups came out quickly and made it sound like he was a misogynist. He hated women. No, what they don't tell you is he didn't hate women. He hated white women who he tried to date and then saw them, especially this one particular sorority, and saw them later on dating black guys or dating Asian guys. So it wasn't about hating women. This guy was a rabid, hardcore racist, and he got angry because these white girls would date blacks and Asians instead of dating him. And he tried to get into a sorority house. Unfortunately for whoever the den mother was of that house, she didn't open the door because his plan was to go inside this one particular sorority house and kill everybody inside. When he wasn't able to gain entry into the sorority house, he started driving around and started shooting at anybody who was out on the street. Now, I say that to you because one thing you don't hear about this suspect, Mr. Nelson, the guy in Orlando, just like Elliot Rodgers, hardcore racist, including being a rabid anti-gay lesbian person. That particular night in the club in Orlando was Latino night. And do you know who most of those Latinos were in that club, Mr. Nelson?
Puerto Ricans, Cubans?
There you go, who look as you and I. So there may be a little bit more to this story than what they're trying to paint this picture now of him being some Muslim and all this other crap, because Elliot Rodgers will go down. In fact, I have to give a lot of credit to Peter Tilden up here in L.A., because sadly, one of the victims in the Cal State University Isla Vista shootings was the daughter of somebody who works at KABC here in L.A., and Peter Tilden does a radio show here at KABC, and he was the only person I ever heard on the radio who acknowledged what I stated. He said, how come nobody's talking about the racist aspect of Elliot Rodgers? And then there was only one media outlet that I saw called Raw Story, who actually printed verbatim direct quotes of how racist Elliot Rodgers was. Whereas most people have never heard this aspect of the Elliot Rodgers story. They just think he was some guy who hated women, and that's a bunch of crap. Well, the same thing's true with this guy. This guy was known, in fact, he had coworkers who stopped having anything to do with him because of how much racism he had towards people of a darker hue, and the fact that he was also anti-gay. Now, his father has already come out and stated it wasn't about being a Muslim. It's not about his religion. Supposedly, he snapped after seeing these two guys swap and spit. Now, the guy apparently has been, known for having some issues with mental illness. And once again, if his wife, who's now his ex-wife, was aware of that, and his father, who was aware of that, knowing that he's bipolar and other things, why wasn't this brought to the attention of him in regards to having firearms? But I'm going to tell you, Mr. Nelson, states like Florida, guess what kind of laws they try to pass?
What?
Now, when I was growing up, because I never grew up, I got older, the first two questions they would ask you on an application to purchase a firearm: have you ever been convicted of a felony? The second question was, have you ever been the patient for severe mental illness? Do you know the NRA and other gun lobbyist groups are trying to get laws passed that even somebody who has been diagnosed with severe mental problems, that should not be a disqualifier to purchase a firearm?
I'll tell you what, hang on a second, Mark, because Dick Gregory's joining us. I know he's on the road somewhere. Your man. Greg, welcome to WOL Radio.
God bless you, my brother. Peace and love to you. Say, Mark, where you been, man?
I've been trying to stay away because after I told everybody on the radio that I wanted to marry your daughter, I figured I better keep a low profile.
I love it. Well, let me tell you something. This is kind of interesting. That here's a guy that 3 days before this happened, he had met with the FBI. Now, if we leave that out, then we might as well not talk about it. That was the third time he met with the FBI. He bought the gun 3 days before the shooting. Now, if this is gay pride and it happens every year at the same time, why am I wait that long to get a gun? And what they haven't explained is he's already in the club. Now, we're not just talking about the gay club. We're talking about the clubs around the country that open up at midnight when the line is formed at 6 o'clock in the evening. and them bodyguards is bigger than gorillas. And you tell me he walk in there with a rifle? With a rifle? And he get in, and then he didn't shoot nobody. He came outside. And then he ran back in and shot that many people. Now, if you've seen the interview of the guy who was shot but didn't die, he said there was 3 people shooting.
That's correct.
He said there was 3 people shooting.
You mean like in San Bernardino?
Yeah.
Remember in San Bernardino, the witness said there were 3 white people shooting?
San Bernardino is this. That was the Christmas party. There was 1,000 people there. You mean nobody had a cell phone? You ain't heard nobody shooting, you heard nobody holler, and you ain't seen no ambulance. Okay?
Right, but they blamed it on a couple when the eyewitness is adamant that it was 3 white guys who were doing the shooting.
Oh, yeah, but, they say all kind of stuff. I'm not even dealing with that. I'm dealing with the fact that no cell phone, 1,000 people at a Christmas party.
That's correct.
And then when they give us this crap about, see, they slipped and messed up. And his wife, when they opened up the back of that SUV, she was handcuffed. And that's when the FBI came in and took over the investigation. Okay? You didn't hear nobody say anything. They had to feed it through the FBI. Now, when they say they're trying to get Apple to let them punch in, they say, hey, man, the Russians say the KGB, they punched into that. The Pentagon didn't punch. You tell me this
KGB. Hey, Greg, LAPD has punched into those kind of damn. LAPD has a history of punching into those phones.
Yeah, and you have to ask somebody. And so then again, when you look at why did he run back in? Huh?
Right. Exactly.
And why didn't he shoot nobody while he was already in there?
Exactly. And that's
how he gonna shoot there. Yeah.
And that, Mr. Nelson, is what I'm talking about, because there was a situation where this individual was outside and then was confronted and went back inside. And once he went back inside, that's when things went haywire. So what I'm just saying to you, and I know what Gregory's saying too, is this. That dog don't hunt. Everything we're being told right now logically makes absolutely no sense.
None whatsoever. None. And you know, I'm sure you did, that the company you work for has a big contract with the federal government?
That's an understatement. In fact, I'm anxious to know, maybe that company even has the contract for that damn club. Because, I mean, seriously, no, you're laughing, but I'm serious, because they are the biggest security guard company on the planet. And they're buying up everybody. They're buying up everybody.
You go too deep. You know, my grandmother just called me, and she said she's listening to you. She don't know what swapping spit means. And I said, well, he hangs out on the beach with young folks, so I can imagine you didn't know that ain't nothing but a kiss. Oh, she said, oh, I do that all the time. Okay. No, but it's going to be more to this. I think they made a little too many mistakes on this one. They normally don't make this many this early. And so it's going to be kind of interesting.
Well, I'll say this. People may not have heard of GS4 before, but after this, they're going to know who GS4 is. Now they're going to have to be this like Blackwater and maybe change their name and go into hiding, because the stuff they do around the world, people have no idea.
Yep.
I tell you what, hang on, guys. We got to take a quick break. We're on with Mark from Anaheim, Dick Gregory. We're discussing Orlando, folks. You got a question? If the 6, we'll take your calls after the traffic and weather update on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Carl Nelson Show.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
Thanks for rolling with us, folks. We're discussing Orlando. Before we go back to our guest, just want to remind you, Dr. Tate is going to join us in the next few days. Also, Dr. Ava Muhammad is going to be here, and Brother Cush is going to stop by as well. I got to say this, Mark. Last night with Greg was at the Hollywood Improv, and he put on a show. So, folks, he's on tour, and I know he's going to be at the Power Talk this weekend. But if he comes to your city,
he was in Hollywood and didn't tell me.
No, Hollywood, Florida.
Listen, wait a minute.
Hollywood, Florida. Okay.
I was trying to look for you. You say scared. You mean scared.
You know,
anyway, it was Rock Newman was there. David Banner was there as well, and Razor the comedian. You know. Before we go back to Orlando, Mark, I just want to say all these young comedians, man, they look up to Dick Gregory, which is great because they understand that he paved the way for many of them.
And he's still paving the way. You know.
It was fun.
Check this out.
I was surprised with the shootout yesterday morning. I thought it would be. I didn't think the place would be oversold, but and I told white folks when I walked on stairs, you better look at these black folks. The biggest shootout going. They still here. So now, if they get mad at you now, you know what you're dealing with. But no, it was wonderful, and then to a call to be there with his family. Well, it was really, really nice. And I thank you, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun. Well, let's get.
Well, you know what, Mr. Nelson was really weird. Talk about Small World. I'm not going to name them here, but I'm sure a lot of people listening will know who I'm talking about. My two closest surfers, who I actually look at as my surrogate son and daughter, they live in the town where G4S is. I'm sorry, I keep calling them G4S. They are actually headquartered in the town that they live in, G4S. That's some wild stuff right there.
Wow.
Small world.
And now people are going to know about this G4S because of what happened.
Yeah, of course. Well, no, because the media doesn't mention it. But, I mean, listening to this show today, I'm sure people are going to know. Because ever since I told folks that I was going to come on your show today, my phone's been having all kind of weird clicks, and everybody who called me, now their phones are having weird clicks.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about you and folks like us, when something happens, it's flexible now. I can't wait till call, turn on call. I know we're going to find out.
But Greg,
Mr. Nelson, okay, he's not going to tell you this, but I'll be remiss if I didn't mention it. See, this doesn't escape me. Before the surf contest started last week, while everybody was talking about D-Day, nobody talked about the fact that June 6, 1968, Ambassador Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dick Gregory was the one who told Robert Kennedy before he was assassinated that if he went to L.A., he would be assassinated.
He wouldn't come back. I said if you win, you won't come back that night.
Yeah.
It'll be over.
But Greg, what about the Orlando shooting that bothers you? What about the reports that don't add up?
Well, none of them added up to me. Again, the time that they started it, and how quick it was over. But here's the weird thing, man. They went into that building with that tank, okay? They didn't even know if there was any hostages being held. How would they know? And then I didn't know the cop that was outside. He was a city cop, but he was working overtime there. He was one of the guards, And so I just said, it's so much there. You have to wait because you know the major press is not going to touch it, even if they know it. And so that's what kind of bothers me. And then the other thing that bothers me is the guy they arrested in L.A. and said he was on his way to blow up a gay place. You know, that just verifies what the government was put out heavily yesterday evening. I mean, they know who he was. They know who he worked for. They know he's been out of the country and all of that. And then he made a call. He made a call with a 911 and told them what he was going to do. Come on.
Yeah, and you know what state they say he's from, right?
No,
Indiana.
Yeah.
And in his car, he had several assault rifles, lots of ammunition, and bomb-making devices.
Yeah, that's the one in L.A.
Now, mind you, nobody talks about folks from Indiana because Indiana is the state that passed the law that gives them permission to shoot and kill cops if they think their civil rights are being violated.
Yeah, and you know who else signed that? The NRA signed it.
Exactly. Not just the NRA, the Oath Keepers. So when you got these Uncle Toms like Sheriff Clark, who speaks out for the Oath Keepers who hate the federal government, who said they will not follow any federal gun law that the Obama administration passes, and who claim to be so pro-law enforcement. They passed a law in Indiana allowing citizens to kill cops if they believe their civil rights are being violated.
That's right. And so, and the other thing is that when I went there and interviewed cops, they didn't even know that was the law.
Oh, I know, because they argue with me all the time. I run law enforcement Facebook sites closed to the public, and I got to deal with these knuckleheads every day. Okay? And worst part about it is, then two of those folks, husband and wife, they left Indiana. They went out to that Bundy Ranch out in Nevada. After they went to the Bundy Ranch, they went into downtown Las Vegas, and these two white Las Vegas cops were just eating lunch. They walked in, shot and killed them. Put the SWAT stickers all over their bodies and said that the revolution has begun. So while you folks are focusing on the Black Lives Matter, to this date, and I take this deadly seriously, I have not found one police officer who's been killed as a result of Black Lives Matters. But I've found a whole lot of cops being killed in this country by these white separatist groups who come out of Indiana and other places talking this radical crap.
Yeah, well, you know, Indiana, where the Ku Klux Klan was invented.
The number one state. Oh, and by the way, Mr. Nelson, Indiana was number one for the Klan. You know who was number two?
No, who's that?
California.
Greg, let me ask you this. The dude in Orlando, they said he called 911 twice. What was happening? Three times. Well, what was happening while he was on the phone with 911?
They was telling them, say, now, when you get through, come on over here. We got dinner waiting for you.
Well, Mark, help us out. You're the tactical dude. What happens? The guy's on the phone. He's on the phone three times. Couldn't they? I'm sure they've got marksmen there who could have taken him out, or couldn't the people? I don't know. The people just sat around and got slaughtered while he was on the phone.
So what you're saying, Mr. Nelson, just like Greg and I just said, nothing they've told us so far makes any sense.
None. And this will go all the way down to the Republican convention.
Oh yeah.
When they have a shootout.
Oh yeah, because remember now, this is in a right to carry a gun state, and they're still arguing about whether or not they can carry their guns into the convention.
Yeah, and listen to this here now. And you also have to have an understanding that the executive order 13603, in order to put that in, you have to create the violence to give the president the right to suspend the Constitution and the government, and there'll be no election. There'll be no election. You know, and as much crazy stuff that Trump talk about, two things. One, I've cut him a little slack, because that's the first white man I ever heard call a white woman ugly. You know, that's the first time I ever heard that. Even the dead one, the very gorgeous brunette, was found. I said, will y'all ever in my lifetime find an ugly dead white woman anywhere? You know, and then the other thing is then when you look, have you heard the fact that there's two Donald Trumps? The one that wears the red tie is the real one, and anytime you see him with another cover, that's the decoy. Now then we go back to when the guy jumped up on the stage and the Secret Service grabbed him. Well, you knowing what you know about the police thing, you know once I get up on the stage that close, you might grab me, but the person I'm going is dead. Okay? And I just thought that was a dry run. You know. Yeah,
and that goes right back. That goes right back to the movie Machete. Machete came out in 2010, Tarantino movie, where Robert De Niro says everything in that movie that you hear Trump saying now, and in that movie, Robert De Niro gets shot.
Yeah.
I tell you what, hang on, fellas. We got some people in London checking us out. Better Man is listening. Shout out to him. And Paul is calling in from London on line 5. Paul, I'm with Dick Gregory and Mark from Anaheim.
Good afternoon, Carl, and good afternoon to your listeners.
How is it across the pond?
Same.
Brother, the weather is the usual UK weather. It's raining as usual. Politics is hotting up. But I thought I'd just have to ring in because Mark from Anaheim, I think he's dropping some really magical jewels there. You're right. I mean, it's the first time this news of this shooting has been splashed all over the UK news. You just said something which just was very amazing, really, because at no time in dropping in the news coverage have they mentioned G4S.
Hell no. Hell no, because G4S is like just like your boy from Blackwater who became ZX or whatever you call him. He's the Knights of Malta. The guy, I'm just gonna tell you guys straight out. The guy who's in charge of G4S is an untouchable.
Yes.
Well, what I find very interesting is that, as you rightfully said, probably the listeners probably are not aware of, but we are certainly aware of. You're rightfully, it is an English company, and it's been involved in a major controversy from its inception. It had the contract for the Olympics, and it nearly lost the contract due to underpaying its staff. You've had prison breaks. You've had all sorts of controversial remedies with the company, and you now saying that this guy actually will work with G4S is just new. They've actually kept this from the news.
So what you're telling me is I better check under my truck tomorrow morning, huh?
Well, the problem with talking to you black folks...
Go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask you a question, though, slightly off the subject. Maybe you can answer it. Could you explain why President Obama conveniently stopped in London, warn us of staying in the EU? Why he felt that necessary?
Okay.
Well, that's part of the plan.
That's part of the plan. But see now, Brother Greg and I came on back in the early 90s on Mr. Nelson's show out here in L.A., and what we tried to warn the listeners was when they were creating the European Union, everybody touts Reagan bringing the wall down, but we always promised that we would never let Germany unite again. The European Union is based on the German mark. However, Great Britain still uses the pound. And now Obama had to go over there with the Queen to figure out what they're going to do, because the European Union, they're destroying every country with their corporate fascist, what they call austerity. That's why they took Greece down. Yeah. By the way, they plan on doing the same thing here, too.
Oh, they already done it. They just haven't told us yet.
Exactly. Yeah. So what President Obama had to do was go over to Great Britain to get his marching orders from the Queen, because, folks, if you want to believe this, I came on a show with Dick Gregory back in the 90s, and I told Dick and Carl Nelson, every general I ever worked for, his secretary was a British civilian.
Oh,
and I'm just a loyal servant to the Queen as long as
right. Hold that thought right there. We're going in now. We got to take a quick break. Folks, stay with us, Paul, if you can. 800-450-7876. You too can join the conversation with Dick Gregory and Mark from Anaheim. Your call's next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Nelson Show
on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest, our power talker, Dick Gregory, and also Mark from Anaheim. These are the folks, the two men we go to whenever there's a shooting like what happened in Orlando to try to figure it out, try to make some sense out of it. Before we left, we had a call from Paul in London, and I think was it Greg or was it Mark was answering his question about why President Obama is trying to twist the Brits' arm to stay in the European Union.
That's not what he was doing. He was going over there and being told by the Queen.
Right. Well, that's what Paul was asking, why he did it.
He has no choice because, like I was a Marine Corps officer, I was just a loyal servant to the Queen. This country has never given up their independence to Great Britain.
That's why.
Seriously.
That's why we call it the mother country.
Exactly, and when Prince Charles comes over here, he's not coming over here to visit. He's coming over here to look at their real estate, because the only people who own more land in this country than Great Britain is the Catholic Church.
Yep.
They own more than Chinese?
Well, that's changing, but you know what also happened was, and which is one of the reasons why Princess Di is dead, but the Saudis started buying up a lot of property that used to formerly be owned by Great Britain. And then when Robert Maxwell started telling people what was really going on, Robert Maxwell had a convenient drowning off the back of a sailboat.
And the people going out now buying gold and silver, it's not going to work. See, buying gold and silver is okay when the economy is bad.
Yes.
But when there's chaos, you can't run with it.
Exactly. And before, what happened in this country during the gold and silver run, FDR made it illegal, and anybody who was caught with gold or silver could go to prison. You had to turn your gold and silver in.
Uh-huh.
Let me ask you fellas this then. Do you expect another economic downturn?
Hell yeah.
Already, yeah.
It's already started. Obama's hanging on, hoping it doesn't happen before he leaves the White House. In fact, college student credit debt is now greater than credit card debt. People are killing themselves left and right in Silicon Valley, and you don't hear about it in the media because the computer industry, they're on a bubble. They're super inflated their value. Apple's not making anything new.
Yep.
So what do we do?
I'll tell you what you do.
Wait. What do we do, Carl? When did we get to be part of this economic thing? Huh?
Exactly.
What do we, like a Jew and Nazi Germany, saying to the other Jew, what do we do?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Exactly.
I
go to the beach and hang out. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Because this is your world. You folks need to get right with God, start having more respect for your families, and get yourself a bug-out bag like I told you, so when things hit the fan, you will be able to survive at least 72 hours away from home with what you have in that bag.
That's right. and if you tell your family what you got, and they think you're crazy, then you tell them you were just playing, because when it happened, they know where some food is. You remember that plane that crashed up in somewhere in South America with that soccer team on it? And they started eating one another.
Exactly.
You know,
we have a saying in soccer, well, actually rugby. In rugby, we eat our dead.
Wow. Hang on, guys. Mayhem's been holding for a while. He wants to talk to you guys on line 3. Mayhem's calling us from Indiana. Mayhem, you're on with Mark from Anaheim and Dick Gregory.
Yeah. Hey, it's a pleasure to talk to y'all. I want to ask y'all 3 questions. Y'all said some stuff is really going down. In Indiana, they are eating people, and you already talked about the guys that left here and went to California with all the guns. Hey, Mark, I want to ask you and Dick Gregory, can y'all talk about the new Purge movie that's coming out? And also, it was a guy down here, a white guy, he killed about 3 or 4 people. He's talking about the Purge began, but we already know it began. But I'm going to take that off the phone. Can you answer that for me? And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, the Purge have always been here. You don't have to wait for them who's doing it to tell you that it's happening. It's always been here. Y'all don't remember Rockefeller when he was governor, and he said he's going to run for president, but he had a gay son. And back in them days, that was a no-no to have a gay son. So Rockefeller sent his son to New Guinea to do some company business, and the cannibals ate him. Huh? You hear me? So that's why y'all can't even compare yourself to them. Can't even compare yourself to them. I know my wife got upset when she found out I wouldn't give up a kidney or nothing. She said, not even to the family? I said, no. Not even to me. I said, if you read the law, God said, one to a customer. Huh? Let me tell you something. I wouldn't give up a hemorrhoid. So this is where this thing is going, and they can keep trying to entertain people and give you the bad news and all of that and say the news is not bad. But what was the black comic they put out there when they got ready to hit Cosby? And you ain't heard no more from him. Huh? They gave him a whole routine to do, and you ain't heard no more from him. See, once we understand that we got trillions of dollars worth of satellites up there in the sky.
Exactly.
Trillions. And you mean they didn't see Malaysian Airlines? And then you got to ask yourself this here. There's 179 different airlines that fly into Malaysia every day. Then you ask yourself, well, wait a minute, what do they make? I never went to the store and see something they made in Malaysia. It's the number one freak party for white billionaires. They go there, and if they want a 6-year-old or 4-year-old, it's in the bed waiting for them. That's what that's about, okay?
And guess what, Mr. Nelson? Do you know what Greg just said about not giving up any body parts?
Mm-hmm.
I say the same thing. So guess what they're doing now because of folks as we are? They are now putting human body parts into pigs. And the pigs are growing with human body parts so they can use those now to make organ donations. I am not making this up.
Well, see, you just a nice brother. They're using them now to sell to Muslims. Y'all won't eat pig, but we'll put one in you. And the other thing is this, Mark. Listen to this. Muslims do not eat pork.
That's correct.
Sin. But if you had a son that was a good football player, they just totally forget that that's made out of pig skin. Okay? When you catch it, just don't let it get around your mouth, son.
And Greg, speaking about organ parts, there was talk about Chicago, all these killings. There's a lot of shootings in Chicago.
Hell yeah.
And you're saying that most of them were headshots?
Let me tell you something, okay? When you go to the hospital, I had nurses contact me and tell me because they didn't want to get in trouble. By law, they're required to notify the police when somebody is stabbed or shot. And the doctors would not let them do it until they stole those organ parts out of these guys.
That's right.
Thank you. Come on, man.
And you know something else,
for you LAPD cops listening, you think I'm making this up? Christy Hamilton was shot in the line of duty, one of my former recruits. She was a rookie. They stole her corneas before LAPD got her body.
Yeah, and you know what? When there's a homicide, it's your family member, you can have jurisdiction over that body. The coroner has jurisdiction over that body, and you can't see it or identify it until they call you in. And when they call you in, you're so traumatized, it never dawns on you that they took all the body parts out. And you got to understand, the undertaker is part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
And since Carl Nelson wants to bring up Chicago, because I know you had Fred Hampton Jr. on the other day, I was the first person to come on your show and talk to you about the black ops centers they call fusion centers in Chicago where people disappear. They're not formally charged with a crime and they're held indefinitely. And then I finally, by that whole series on Scandal, the very first episode of Scandal showed you the whole thing.
Yep.
And you have no rights when they arrest you because technically speaking, they didn't arrest you and charge you with a crime and they hold you, and you know where that law was set, Mr. Nelson, right?
Where?
Guantanamo Bay, because we're doing the same thing there. They've never been charged with a crime.
Yeah. And that's why I ain't never trusted Castro. How is America going to have the most secret Navy base in the world and it's on enemy territory? And 98% of the people work there are Cubans. And the one that taught them how to be dirty was the sergeant, was the detective out of Chicago that went there and taught them all of that, then came back and continued to do it there.
Now, let me just tell you folks this, because I talked about Robert F. Kennedy. This is very important for listeners. I talked about Robert Kennedy, Dick Gregory. When they did the investigation on Kennedy's assassination, they brought back an LAPD cop who was teaching torture tactics down in Central America. His name was Enrique Hernandez. So I know you folks are researchers, and if you guys think I'm making this up, just look up the name Dan Mitrione, Mitrione. He was killed in Central America teaching Central Americans torture tactics for the State Department and the CIA. But they brought those two guys back to make sure that nobody was going to find out who killed Robert Kennedy.
Now remember this: the Blackstone Rangers in Chicago.
Yes. And
the one who ran, he couldn't read or write, but when Nixon became president, he was invited to the inauguration.
Just like Eazy-E went to the White House with George Bush.
Yeah, he was invited to the inauguration. And now here, let me tell you how they do that. They say the military surgeon needs something to practice on because every 10 years a new set of weapons come out. So they get them and take them gangs
I tell you what, hang on a second, Greg. We got to take our last look at the traffic. I'll let you tell the story on the other side. Folks, you too can join this conversation with Dick Gregory and Mark from Anaheim. Reach out to us. It's really easy. It's 800-450-7876. Your call's next as the big show rolls on from 1450 WOL, where information
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
And thanks for staying with us, folks. You're getting 2 for 1 right now with Dick Gregory and Mark from Anaheim. 800-450-7876.
It's Mark from Anaheim.
About Orlando.
It's Mark from Anaheim and his future ex-father-in-law.
Yeah, you're going to get hurt. Greg, I'm going to let you finish your story.
Well, I don't know if I want to finish it. I'm just telling you, folks, seriously, when it comes to body parts, that's a major industry. A major industry. And a lot of these gang shootings are it's like a heaven sent for these doctors who are getting paid under the table thousands of dollars for all the body parts. And I'm going to tell you, folks, because I put on my driver's license, body donor, I put hell no. But that doesn't mean your driver's license is going to be with your body if you're in a car accident. They just ignore it.
No, they just take your wallet out and put in the other one and say, yes, I'm sorry, I'm sorry I haven't got 12 more. You know, the Chinese, when they used to execute people, they put a bullseye around their heart. And so the Marx folks see that the body parts is something from us. They shoot you in the head and harvest everything down.
Exactly.
That's how big it is. Everything down. And so when we sit and look at the stuff they show us, I mean, for instance, take Somalia. When they was telling us they was tired in this, white countries have the major navies in the history of the planet. Them folks over there in Somalia don't have 3 rowboats. And you telling me,
Brother Greg,
up, yes.
What branch of the service was I in?
I thought you said Marines, wasn't you?
That's all we are. We are the modern-day pirates of the United States. We get off the ship, kick their ass, take their booty. And as far as Somalia goes...
Wait. See, you're so smart. You know, wait a minute. Carl, we ought to limit him to 5 minutes on the show. You see, the word booty is the loot that the pirates take off the ship.
Exactly.
So when you look at a sister and say, give me some booty, you're talking about somebody that's still a slave.
Exactly.
Huh?
Exactly. Now, Mr. Nelson, my brother Gregman, I know this. Okay, I went to a top secret briefing regarding Somalia. Okay, and these are folks who are like lieutenant colonels, Navy commanders, etc. in the room. They're the ones taking your sons and daughters to war. And not one of those people in the room knew what the hell I was talking about when I said, isn't the new president of Somalia a United States Marine? Because we took a Marine reservist from right here from Encino, California, Mr. Nelson, whose father was the president of Somalia. We took him out, put his son in, and when his son didn't go along with the program, we took him out. And we love the fact that there's no real government in Somalia right now, because while we're talking pirates, the United States, China, and all of the European countries have raided all the fishing industry around Somalia, that now the local folks have no fish, no seafood to eat because we've taken all the seafood from around Somalia.
Wow. Hang on, guys. We got Terrence has been holding for a while. He's got questions for you on line 2. He's calling us from Columbus, Ohio. Terrence, and with Dick Gregory and Mark from Anaheim.
Pleasure to talk to both of you. It's my 4th time talking to Dick. Mark, you know, I told you on Facebook I'd definitely be tuning in, and every time you're on, I'll always be sure to call.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask you a couple questions, Mark, and get Dick's response. What was your reaction to Donald Trump's tweet about what happened in Orlando? And also, what do you think about Obama's response?
Well, first, Donald Trump was an idiot because Donald Trump made it sound like this guy had come from another country when he was actually born in the United States.
Yeah.
And as far as President Obama goes, his was a very lukewarm, milquetoast response that didn't really say much of anything except the fact that everybody's in this country is a victim, and, you know. So, I'm sure Brother Greg's got more to say on that.
Let me give you one thing. If Donald Trump has talked about everything from the Bible to the Pope to every minority, but he ain't never said nothing about gays. So what does that say about him?
And by the way, since you said that, Brother Greg, what do people suggest about Hillary Clinton?
Oh, they've been saying that.
And
they've been saying that.
And aren't Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton cousins related by blood?
That's right, by blood. Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing, but it's deadly serious. What I'm trying to tell you, folks, is while you get all impassioned and worry about Donald Trump being the president or Hillary, you don't pick the president. You never have, and you never will.
Never. And also, what people don't know when they talk about the Electoral College, the law is they don't have to pick who the people vote for.
They can make Donald Trump the vice president and Hillary Clinton the president, and you can't do a damn thing about it.
That's right. And so that's the game they play.
And if you guys think I'm making this up, I'm from South Carolina. Do your little homework, folks. Another guy from South Carolina back in the 1800s, one party had a vice president and one party had a president that was running this country.
Yep. And you know something? I didn't know for a long time that in the early days the Senate didn't get elected. They was picked by the Congress.
Absolutely. And there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that says that any of us even have the right to vote.
Yep.
So when black folks are complaining that we may not be able to vote, it covers everybody.
Well, if you pay attention to what Newt Gingrich and others were saying back in 2014, they were saying we should go back to where if you're not a wealthy property owner, you shouldn't be able to vote in this country.
That's right. And so let me tell you how they run this thing for a long time. 80% of the American public live within a 600-mile radius of Cleveland, Ohio. Now you take Cleveland and draw a ring around it. That covers New York. That covers everything. 600-mile radius, that covers everything. And that's what this is about. Nothing less and nothing more. And then you look at a white boy, black folks legally, black men got the right to vote with the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. They didn't give it to us, but legally we had the right. A white woman didn't get it till 1921, and that's her father, her brother, everybody. And he didn't let her go, and she got it after, And so if you look at your God intelligence, when they came up and said we're going to put the black woman on the $20 bill, So when you look at Harriet Tubman, what no black folks, black folks had nothing to do with that. You know what? You know how you know that? Because if they'd have picked if black folks they'd have made Harriet Tubman a little bit lighter and looked like she graduated from Howard University. Them young white folks said, no, let's put this slave woman on there. Because the significance of that is one. First, the one they took off Jackson, he was a slave owner, and the one they put on was a slave. Now think about that, how the universe works. They took the slave owner off the $20 bill and put a slave woman on it, okay? And black folks had nothing to do with it. Like black folks had nothing to do when they said we're not going to use the word they describe Negroes with. Wasn't a black person in the room. And then you black folks sit there and talk all that stuff. If a white boy today call you a nigger and then hit you, that's a hate crime that goes to federal court. If he call you the N-word and hit you, it don't make it out of the city court. So y'all sit there and look at all that stuff and listen to all that craziness they run down and think you have part of this. You don't have part of nothing. Okay?
Yeah, and here's the most dangerous thing about that, Brother Greg, because most folks don't realize this. There are now enough Republican governors and enough states that have Republican legislatures where they can have what's called the Articles of Confederation. If they meet and if they vote, listen to me very carefully, listeners, the federal government has no more legal authority in this country.
That's right. That's right. But listen to this here now. Now, Mississippi, them die-hard crackers will kill anybody, okay? Now, you never heard Mississippi say, you do this, we'll succeed from the Union. You never heard Alabama, the only one state in America that talked about, because when they brought in Texas to be a state, it was already a country. And so they wrote in that, I don't know the date, but one day every year they can vote to succeed. That's why they call the Lone Star State.
Actually, it's called the Republic of Texas.
Yes.
And by the way, I live in California, which is the Republic of California. It's not a state.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I got a tweet question about Orlando, and the person wanted to know who does it benefit more, Trump or Hillary?
Both.
Who? What? You mean the shooting?
Yeah.
It benefits both of them. Both of them. You know? And so, but what difference do it make? See, I'm saying there'll be no election this year. Okay?
Well, you heard me say that already.
Didn't you hear the president say he's not going back home?
You notice he ain't moving. He ain't moving. They already got this nice house. They got this nice house out here in Palm Springs for him. He goes, "Nah, we think we're going to stay in D.C. for a while because we still have a daughter in school."
Yeah, and then the one that graduated, he said she ain't going to school this year.
Exactly. She's not even going to school her first year. And he's already joked about it. He goes, "Well, you know, some people think I'm going to stay in the White House."
Wow. So both of them would benefit from the shooting. That's what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. They both
benefit.
Carl, let me change the subject real quick. Let's say.
All right. Hold that right there, Greg, because we got to take a quick break. I'll let you finish on the other side. 800-450-7876. Number to call. Speak to Gregory or Mark from Anaheim. Ask anything you want, folks. We'll take your calls next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Nelson Show.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
Thanks for rolling with us, folks. Our guest, Mark from Anaheim, Dick Gregory. Greg, by the way, is going to be with us this Friday, Saturday, over at the Power Talk 3 conference. That's going to be at Union Temple Baptist Church in D.C. Friday, we start at 4. Saturday, we start at noon. You're going to hear from Professor Griff, Dr. Jim Klingman, Reverend Dr. Willie Wilson, Dr. Julius Garvey. He's the youngest son of Marcus Garvey. Dr. Booker T. Coleman. Some of you know him as Kabe Kameni. He's been in all the Hidden Colors series. Dr. Ava Muhammad. She's the attorney for the Nation of Islam, also the attorney for Minister Farrakhan. Dr. Patricia Newton, psychologist. Dr. Tony Browder is going to open one of his Browder files. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. J is going to be there. Dr. Malefi Asante, the man who's coined the term Afrocentricity. He's head of the Black Studies Department at Temple University in Philly. And Dr. Claude Anderson, the man with the plan. So if you want your tickets, go to PowerTalkSeries.com. If you're in D.C. and you want to just pick up your tickets in hand, just go over to the church, 1225 W Street. That's Southeast D.C. That's between King and the Frederick Douglass Memorial in Anacostia. Let's go back now to Greg. I'm going to let you finish up what you were saying.
Okay. What was I saying now?
Mark, help him out.
You
remember what I was saying?
You were saying something about me being your son-in-law. I remember.
Oh, yeah, you've been knowing that. Your mama told you that.
Well, here's the thing. Earlier, Mr. Nelson said he got a tweet about who benefits. Mr. Nelson, they both benefit from this shooting. And I'm going to tell you, there's somebody else who benefits from this shooting, too, sadly.
Who's that?
O.J. Simpson. Because until this shooting, June 12th was known for the day that Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson got murdered. Now nobody's talking about O.J. Simpson because of this tragic incident in Orlando.
Well, let me tell you something that I know you know. You know, see, I don't talk to Carl like this because he knows stuff, but he won't admit it. What?
Exactly.
What? Come listen to this. Carl will slip you a note and tell you to say it like you created it.
Exactly.
Let me tell you something. Ron Goldman, they claim, was over to Nicole's house. They didn't have no relationship going, but her mother ate there and left her glasses, okay? And he would say, I'll bring them to the house for you to give to your mother. Now, wait a minute. You have a place when people leave stuff and they come there and they get it, okay? If the lost and found, you just come there and you pick it up. Now, when the shooting went down, they had just a newspaper reporter, not thinking nothing was cooking, and called the mother the next day and said, when was the last time you talked to your daughter? That's Nicole Simpson. She said, about 11 o'clock last night. So now she said, well, that's impossible because the shooting happened before that.
Yeah, the stabbing.
Yeah. She said, well, are you sure? She said, look, twice a week, my husband and I go to this restaurant we love, and it's an hour and a half from our house.
There it is.
We left there at 9:30.
There it is.
Now, I never throw my parking tickets away because I use that to write off. And I can go get it and show you what time it was stamped. So we couldn't have been home before 11 o'clock.
There it is.
Now,
and Mr. Nelson, that's why to this day the Pacific Bell has never given up the phone records.
No. The federal court mandated that they cannot give up the phone number for 75 years.
There it is.
The other thing is just common sense. When he was driving through L.A., and every time he turned a corner and go past a bridge, it's thousands of white folks up there. How did they know he was coming that way?
Oh, I know. But here's the thing, Mr. Nelson, that Greg doesn't tell you. Here's the thing that Greg doesn't tell you that he might not even be aware of. Brother Greg and I, it's amazing the people we have in common who we know. And I still to this day keep a letter that I received from William Colby's widow. And Greg knows that I will never believe that William Colby accidentally drowned. Greg was in an audience one day talking to folks about William Colby's murder, and in the audience was William Colby's son.
That's right. Yes.
No, but
hey, man, wait.
You got to hear this because most folks don't
know.
No,
you going to make me think you the police now.
Hang on, Mark.
You ain't supposed to know that.
William Colby's son is the one who called 911 the night that Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson were murdered because he was the next door neighbor.
Okay, now watch this. Now let's take it a step further. When I met with Colby's son at the university there in New Orleans, I said, "Man, you going to Catholic school?" I said, "I'm surprised. You all are Catholics." He said, "Yeah, why?" I said, "Because then the Catholics usually don't get sensitive jobs because you got to confess to the priest." Okay, and I am shocked at your dad that now when the first black general, the Air Force, what was his name?
Chappie Davis.
Chappie Davis. When he died, I know they killed him because anytime a gun-ho black cat, get a big position, they ain't gonna die from lack of exercise or nothing. And so when he died, I'm saying this and said he killed him, and I didn't know the son was in the audience listening to the lecture. So everybody was laughing when I took the break and said good questions. When I came back and he came to me crying, and I said, "Oh, wait. Let me say this to you. When I go out on stage, I said, the father of 10 black children, y'all will not ask, I'm not going to let y'all ask me no questions about Colby's son. So everything we talked about before, there'll be no questions about it." So after it was over, he came back and he thanked me, and he said, would you care to go to breakfast in the morning? I said, as long as I can pick the restaurant. Okay? Now watch this here. Now listen to this now, because it's going to blow you away. So we go out and we talk, and then about 18 months later, I'm at the University of Vermont, and a white guy walked up to me and said, "I have a letter from you from so-and-so Colby." I forgot who he was talking about. And I said, "Who's Colby's TIA's son?" He said, "Yeah." So I opened up and read it after I finished, and it said, "Thank you." And I guess you were right about the sensitivity. He said, "This past Thanksgiving, my sister was when Dad was saying the blessing, we all had our eyes closed at the dinner table. She took out a pistol and blew her brains out." Wow. Okay? And I said, "Well, did it make the papers?" He said, "Yeah, but they say she died from dyslexia." Okay? And then right after that, I see that is where they came in the house and snatched him out. And my comment on that was he was getting ready to eat dinner, and whatever happened, they wasn't saying he was snatched. They said whatever happened, we haven't figured it out yet. And I said, well, whatever it is, it wasn't no black man that did it. He said, well, I said, well, if something was fishy, how you know? I said, because he had full fat crab cakes. And black people come in, they ate them crab cakes. They ate them crab cakes and they had him out to do anything to it. Okay? And so, now finally, I got to get up on the stage. So let me just say this. Carl.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear, sir.
Can you hear me, Carl?
Sure.
All right. Let's say that your old trifle cousin, don't say you haven't got one, okay? Let's say your trifling cousin becomes president of the United States. He don't know no chemistry. He don't know nothing about nuclear weapons. Do you think because he's president, he gonna carry the nuclear codes around and not some 40-year general? That ain't nothing but a game they play. He don't know nothing about nothing, and they make you think he will determine that, huh? And so again, I'm saying this is what this country is about. It's always been about that, huh? And when people call into the show, they feel something, they hear something, they like it because you bring people on that you trust and they trust. But I'm saying when you sit down and we have all the meetings we want to have this week with information, but don't rule out, white supremacy. They thought we're going to raise this and we're going to do this here. White supremacy, or y'all, because the people that run this country are not these silly ones. Do you know the richest Christian in the world is in America? The Ford company, the Rockefeller people, all of them are Christians. They don't wear crosses, huh? You see them with a cross, and only time the Pope wear one when they're doing a ritual, huh? That's what I'm saying. When you sit and you look, you say, wait a minute, hold it. Something ain't right about this picture. And so it ain't right about it because we want so bad to believe that something's going to happen, but we ain't going to do it. We're going to sit there and talk all that crap. When Hitler was around with the scientists, if he had the scientific stuff that we got now, huh, it would be over. And so what I'm saying is y'all sit and see what they show you, huh? But all the nuclear stuff we got, do you remember, and I'm going to get out of here and listen to y'all on the car. Listen, do you remember when the white folks ran South Africa? South Africa had a nuclear bomb. Remember?
Exactly.
And then all at once the black folk come in, you ain't heard nobody black over there talking about it. Where is the nuclear bomb? Where did it go? So y'all sit there and you get 2 inches of crazy. You see, the way they trick you is this. If black folks, there's a simple question. If black folks have been told long before there was white folks on the planet, long before there's white folks on the planet, then it's obvious the stuff they're telling us now, they rewrote it. So when you take a lie and put science behind it, it sounds true, okay? Easter, 1 year comes in March, another year comes in April. And nobody says, wait a minute, how can you be killed in 2 different months? The Romans invented the cross to kill revolutionists. 1,000 years ago, Christ was born.
Greg, we got to take a break, and I know you got to go on stage, so I thank you. Before you go, though, let me tell you this. ABC News in Orlando is saying that an arrest is expected soon of an alleged accomplice in the Orlando mass shooting. But go on stage.
You know why they had to say that?
What?
They just heard you talking about there was 3 people shooting.
Great, have a good show. We'll talk to you later. Man. We'll see you at the Power Talk 3. 800-450-7876. Mark from Anaheim is going to stay with us and take your calls next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
Thanks for rolling with us, folks. Our guest in the F now, Mark from Anaheim. Coming up in the next few days, Dr. Tate's going to join us. Dr. Ava Muhammad, one of our power talkers, is going to stop by. And also Brother Cush for the Black Unifier is going to be here as well. 800-450-7876, line 5. Robin's been holding for a while, calling from D.C. Robin, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Yes, how you doing? Good evening to both of you gentlemen, as well as Dick Gregory. I know he's off the line. But I've been stopped watching, really like listening to things that happened on the news after that Bronxville incident. And when I'm sitting there working, and something just told me look up at my TV. And when I looked up at my TV, where they said, and they had breaking news from CNN, and when they said that they was had this area barricade because they was doing a raid, and then you see this little girl come up under the police tape, waving and smiling like and pointing at whatever that camera was, like playing with it, keep peeping up and under that tape. But there was no one supposed to have been on that street, and it was a little girl. She looked like she had to be about 6 years old. And the police officer not once turned around. So right then and there, I videoed it. I DVR'd it and took a picture of it because I showed the people at my job because I was like, what is going on? This is unbelievable. And no one on the CNN media, like, acknowledged, like, oh, made a joke about, oh, wow, I guess the little girl report today or nothing. So from that point on, I really don't, like, listen too much to I listen, but I don't really, like, sit and watch detail for detail because it ain't going to never be what is truly really what happens.
All right. Let's give Mark a chance to respond. Thanks, Robin. Mark?
I think what she's saying has a lot of validity, you know, during the Simpson trial as well as during the trial involving the 4 officers of Rodney King. If you listened to what the audio was saying instead of reading what the caption was saying, you'd realize the caption basically was saying just the opposite often of what was being said in the courtroom. So, I mean, as far as television goes, I haven't watched television in years. I haven't had satellite. I've never had satellite. I haven't had cable since '89. I only use my TV to watch videos. So, yeah. What they say, cut that garbage off. But before we go on, because I know we're running out of time, for those who want to find me, just look for Mark from Anaheim, Political Sarcasm 101 on Facebook.
All right, 800-450-7876. Charles is calling on line 2, also from the district. Charles, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Carl, you're on a great show, and thank you for all the work that you do. Mark, my question for you is as follows. They keep talking about this 911 tape. We haven't heard anything about this 911 tape. They haven't released it. Why is that? Secondly, why does the white media always try to revise history? I mean, they're going around saying that this is the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, and we all know that's not the truth. And then third, Mark, what do you call police who choke out Eric Garner in New York, who shoot to death Tamir Rice in Ohio, who kills Sandra Bland in Texas? Are the police not a national domestic terrorist network?
That's a good question. Mark?
Okay. Well, let's start with the 911 call. I agree. Everybody keeps telling us what's on the 911 tape, but none of us have heard it. However, I will say it's been a little bit of embarrassment to all these folks that are pushing this propaganda about the rabid Muslim angle of it, because an FBI agent has actually come out and stated that there were 3 separate 911 calls, and he even stated that the 911 calls conflicted each other when you look at who he's showing loyalty to. Also, there has been no evidence whatsoever to show any direct ties or connections to this suspect and supposedly ISIL/ISIS in regards to police. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that there aren't some police departments that might have some rogue cops that think it's their job to go out and clean the streets of what they consider human garbage. But as far as a national domestic terrorist, no. The problem you have is this. We live in a society where police officers are basically protected, given protection that the average citizen is not given. The police work with the prosecutors. Are we really expecting a prosecuting attorney to vigorously go after a police officer when he has to use that police officer department for cooperation and gaining convictions? It's never going to happen. And you saw that clearly in Ferguson, because in Ferguson, the district attorney spent more time defending the officer involved in the shooting there than he did actually trying to gain a prosecution. Because at a grand jury, as the saying goes, you can get a ham sandwich indicted at a grand jury, depending on how the prosecuting attorney presents the case. So, no, I will never say that the police departments in this country have a national domestic terrorism type network. What I will tell you, there are police departments around the country that have rogue agents. And for Mr. Nelson, out here in California, the mayor of Gardena was just convicted. He was an undersheriff under Baca in the L.A. Sheriff's Department. And he was also a member of the Vikings. Now, the Vikings was a rogue outfit within LAPD and LA Sheriffs. It wasn't just the deputies. LAPD had some Vikings, too. They even have little Viking tattoos on their ankles. And they thought that God put them on this planet to go out and do things beyond what they're supposed to be doing as a police officer. So when you do see things that go on, it's unfortunate because a lot of times police departments are not responsible for what they're doing. The problem is once they do it, instead of prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law, they do more to try to maintain the image of the agency and will protect this officer who later on does something even worse. And if you all want to see a classic movie that shows this, there's a movie called Officer Down, where the captains and others were always running interference and protected officers who should have been fired and or sent to prison, but they were always worried about the image of the department. And we even had a joke on LAPD. You can kill somebody on LAPD and they'll go out of their way to try to defend you. But if you're off duty and you get involved in an incident that brings embarrassment upon LAPD to an outside agency, they're going to go after you with full extent of the law. It's all about the image and perception.
All right. Charles, thanks for your questions. 800-450-7876. I know Brother X is calling us from Chicago. He's got some questions. Brother X, you're on Mark from Anaheim.
Yeah, good show, brother, and thank you. Brother Mark, I hear you predicting a civil war in this country.
Yes,
and
sir.
I'm very surprised when I hear a brother with your intellect say such a thing, because all that's propaganda. What they are doing in this country, they are creating an atmosphere for us as a people to be exterminated. And the cover will be chaos or some civil war. But we are the prize. There's not going to be no civil war. And then you also said when Brother Gregory was there, that have enough stuff packed where you can last for 3 days. Once this stuff started, Brother Mark, there would be no going back home. If you make it to those woods, that's where you're going to die. There would be no coming back. They're going to solve the Negro problem once and for all. I'm looking for them to kill about 90% of us when this extermination starts in earnest.
All right, let's give him a chance to respond. Thanks, Brother X. Mark, you read it like that?
Well, the only problem is, see, I'm not disagreeing with the brother, but it ain't just black folks. And I didn't get a chance because it wasn't really part of the topic today, but Brother Gregory is from St. Louis, Missouri. Now, I came on this show when you had a chief of police who's the new chief in Ferguson. And I came on and told him there's an underground fire at a landfill just across the freeway from Ferguson that's burning out of control and may eventually reach a nuclear waste site. And if it does, it's going to create a Chernobyl-type environment here in the United States. And the brother who's the new chief in Ferguson wasn't even aware of it. That's what he said in his own words. He goes, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. Well, let me just enlighten you folks. The reason they don't give a damn about those people in that landfill area, they're not black. They're poor whites. See, we focus all the time on there's always the black man is going to be killed. Folks, wake the hell up. Until this stock market collapsed, many white folks who were middle class didn't realize they don't count either. It ain't about black and white folks. Donald Trump doesn't get away with what he says because he's white. He gets away with what he says because he's wealthy and white. And as long as we keep making it a black or white thing, they're going to succeed because that's what the wealthy do. They play off the blacks versus the whites versus the browns versus the yellows. Meanwhile, the wealthy at the top are going to be living in their private guarded gates watching us kill each other down below.
Now, you predicted that the economy, and Greg as well, the economy is going to tank.
Hell yeah.
Is it going to be before the election or after the election?
That's hard to say because they're trying to manipulate the system to keep it afloat until after the election. And that's why nobody's really anxious and don't give a damn whether Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton gets in the White House, because they're going to be the ones to take the fall for it. Much of what happened under George Bush's administration was, Mr. Nelson, I came on your show in 1994 and told you the stock market was going to crash. And just like these folks coming on telling you right now there's not going to be a civil war, you believe what the hell you want. The problem is, folks, no brag, just fact. I've never been wrong when I come on and tell you what's going to happen. So when I came on in 1994 and told you the stock market was going to crash because it didn't happen until 2007, 2008, by that time, folks just like this brother X called in saying I was a liar. And when it happened, I sat back and said, but I told you it was going to happen. I don't put a date on stuff because I know people waiting for a date to happen and it doesn't happen then, so it's not going to happen. Guess what? There ain't nobody who's listening to Mr. Nelson's show back in the 90s who can say I didn't come on and tell them everything that happened in 2007 and 2008. And I'll tell you something else. It didn't affect me a damn bit because I was ready for it. You guys don't believe a civil war's coming? Believe what the hell you want. You think it's about black and white? You believe what the hell you want. You don't have your bug-out bag? You do what the hell you want. I'll go at the beach, go surfing every day till I won't say that on the phone, until things hit the fan, and I'll be prepared while you guys sit there going, damn, he was right again.
The bug-out bag. You remember you're going to tell us what's...
I already posted it, so you folks want to know, just go to Mark from Anaheim, Political Sarcasm 101. I list anything and everything I recommend that you should have at your home, should have in your automobile, and should have in a bag that you can grab. And let me just tell you something else, folks, because I talk to black folks right here in L.A. County. If you have children in school, you need to have a place that your children already know is a designated area to meet you in case that you're at work, they're in school, you're not home, and be able to know how to get in touch with them, where they can meet so you all can link up together. You can't wait until there's an earthquake. You can't wait until there's a hurricane. You can't wait till there's a civil war. Now, what's funny, Mr. Nelson, I come on this show and I'm trying to enlighten colored folks. How is it I can go to the beach with white surfers all damn day long and everything I'm telling your listeners, they go, oh, yeah, we know. They're at the beach. I'm at the beach with surfers from Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, even Tennessee. I got surfers from California and Hawaii, and they all know what I'm telling you listeners today, and I got black folks coming on telling you guys today I'm wrong. You guys believe what the hell you want. I was trained by the white folks. You think I might know what the white folks are planning on doing?
Yeah, we're always the last to know, but we're running out of time. So, Mark, give us again, how can folks reach you?
Mark from Anaheim, Political Sarcasm 101. And I have to say this, Mr. Nelson, I thank you for bringing me on today because, seriously, there's a lot more going to come out from Orlando. And Brother Gregory, I don't know if you folks realize, but when he's talking to you, he's throwing in so much comedy. That's why in the background I was cracking up because I got his jokes. He was cracking jokes like I haven't heard him in a long time. And then how did he end it? He said, well, of course ABC is going to announce there's an accomplice because we just said there was more than one suspect. And he left the show with a joke. Folks, that's Brother Gregory's mastery. He's a comedian. He's sending messages to you lightly veiled in jokes, but trust me, he may call me the early warning system. I've got nothing on Brother Gregory.
Right, and we got to run. We're out of time. Later. Folks, stay strong, stay positive, stay in the light. We'll see you tomorrow, 4 o'clock, right here on 1450 WOL, where information is power.